Good evening and welcome to another episode of the podcast.
Howdy, boys and girls.
I'm coming to you live from the luxurious Comfort Inn in Indianapolis. Wow, it's been a exciting couple of weeks since our last episode. We hired a new driver, brought on a new truck. We'll tell you about that here in a minute. The reason for this episode is I stopped at Larry's house the other day, and I got to see some stuff that gave me more of a glimpse into how he ran his previous businesses. I got to see some wedding albums that he did as a photographer, and it just struck me that there was this album from, what was it, 2007? Yeah. It's from 2007. And in it were the sleeves that hold DVDs that we used to carry around in our cars back in the 90s. Before
album's not the right word. It was a file.
File folder.
Book. Album that designates like photo album.
Right. So basically, this was how he kept copies of all the digital files from when he did a wedding, and so all the digital images. What'd you say, from 2000 when you went digital up to the end? And so in this big three ring binder, which was volume 1, by the way, of 2007, were all of the papers and all of the documentation from when he was a photographer, so that, he could go back and see from the initial interview with the customer, and there were these price lists. And then I got to see the last big wedding album that he did, which was incredible. Let's see, you shot that one from the golf game before the rehearsal, the wedding, and the reception.
The Thursday morning groom's golf outing, the Thursday afternoon bridesmaids luncheon. No, I'm lying to you. Thursday night reception for everybody that came to town. Friday morning golf game for the groomsmen. Friday afternoon luncheon for the bridesmaids. Friday night reception, or a rehearsal, and then rehearsal dinner. Then Saturday morning at the bride's house. Saturday morning at where we're getting ready at another venue. Then the wedding at the cathedral, and then the wedding reception at the country club. Then, no, it wasn't the country club, it was their backyard. They put this big, huge tent up, and it was in their backyard, and then in the house as they were getting ready to leave. So then the next morning, we went back over and had breakfast with the family on Sunday morning.
So I mean, this was a big deal, right?
Big deal.
And so what we were talking about was how the difference between one photographer that could go to the church and do the job. They could show up with a camera. They could take the pictures, they could get their check, and then hand the happy couple a flash drive and wish them a happy life, But not Larry Long. No, Larry Long's got the $4,000 package and the $5,000 package and the $8,000 package and all of the different things that you could get. And, you can go shoot a wedding just like you can go pull a load. But what is it that you're going to do to set yourself apart? And so listening, we sat there for probably an hour and a half just talking about what he did for 35 years, and how he was different from the other photographers. And then, of course, goes and replicates it in the dry cleaning business, and had been the guy that would go and fix screwed up car dealerships. And so now we have this opportunity here to, because Blue Ribbon exists obviously to serve customers that need loads hauled, but it's here also to serve drivers that want to learn how to do what we're doing, and now to serve our strategic partners that have trucks. And it just blew me away to see that. I mean, I've heard the stories now that we've known each other. I've heard the stories about the weddings, but I never saw the album. I never saw the finish. I never saw the detail. And I got to see that the other day, and it just blew my mind. So I thought it would be a good idea for us to kind of talk about what you can do in business, regardless if you're shooting pictures or you're dry cleaning clothes or you're selling cars or you're going up and down the road hauling freight. So why don't you just talk about that a little bit? Because at some point, I'm guessing from when did you start? About 1980 or something?
In the wedding business,
Yeah,
77, July of
77.
77.
Okay. Well, I was about 6 months old. Uh, no, I was a year old. Um, so you told the story on 49 about the guy that you learned from, and you said that he was a good photographer. He was a craftsman, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then at some point you decide in that business that you're going to go above and beyond. And what was the line you said? If you make them cry, they'll buy, or something like that.
If they're crying, they're buying.
If they're crying, they're buying. Because y'all can't see where he's sitting right now, but he's in the basement of his house, which used to be the studio and the, what'd you call it, the kind of office, what you would expect to be the office, where you would sit down and you would, he put on this show and show you all your pictures up on the or up on the projector screen, and really spend hours and hours and hours with that computer taking care of these images, and it made my head hurt just sitting there. Cause I mean, I hate just making the thumbnails for these podcasts. I hate art with a passion. It sucks. And I'm so terrible at it, but to think about the hours because you go shoot the wedding, which is an ordeal, but then you have to put all this time in after it to have something to sell after. So,
well,
how'd you get to that point?
Well, the wedding, the craft of photography, grew, evolved during the 35 years that I was involved. I mean, when I started in 77, we literally, professional photographers had just gotten out of flash bulbs not that long ago. I know it sounds funny to you, but I remember Ray Rose, my mentor, talking to me about he would keep the new flash bulbs in one jacket pocket and the used ones in the other. So he'd bring one out, put it in, take the picture, throw it in his left pocket, and do that over and over and over again. Now, I never did that. I started out with electronic flash, but it was crude. We had this big wet cell battery that weighed, I don't know, probably 20 pounds, maybe, in a leather case with a leather strap over it that you hung over your shoulder. And you had to have about 3 of them to get through a simple wedding. A simple wedding for us back then was probably 200 images, 200 shots, 4, 5, 6 hours, And but one of those wet cells would not get you through a wedding. You had to have a couple of them plugged up over in the, against the wall, and you'd have to switch them out. And by the end of the day, you're wore out. You had to switch shoulders because it would just wear you down one way or the other. And so, and of course, it progressed. And when we got to thyristor flashes, and we got to NiCads, and things lasted a lot longer, a lot easier. And still had to have, even with such a NiCad, you had to have about 5 or 6 clusters charging all the time. So it just, the technology, and of course, just the technology. I mean, when I started out, we shot, long row film. It's called 220. We would get 24 shots if you shot a 2 2.25 square. We'd get 20 shots if you shot a 2 2.75 rectangle, which we did back then. The big Mamiyas, we were 2 by 2 3/4. Now the Hasselblad stuff I did later on was just 2 1/4 square. And but it's a big camera. It doesn't look like a 35 millimeter. It's a big camera. I mean, the negative is literally 2 1/4 inches square. So as opposed to a 35 millimeter negative, you like 4 of them on there. Probably 6 of them on there. And so the tools changed. When I started out, a lot of your concentration was on just the technique. Unlike today, there's no chimping. You can't look down and see what you got. You had to just rely on your craft because it was a latent image until you took it into the darkroom. The first time you saw the image is when you saw it appear in front of you in the chemistry. So um, you had to kind of have a little confidence in your craft because you didn't have that secondary reinforcement of looking down to see if the image is there. That's kind of scary. And then now I got to the point where I was doing my own film processing and a lot of our own lab work. But when I first started out, I didn't. I'd go shoot a wedding. I'd take the film and, lick it and stick it and put it in a mailer and mail all of your work you just trusted to the U.S. mail.
God help you.
I know. Now me, I'm a little more OCD than most people, so I didn't do it that way. I took 3 containers and divided the film up randomly between 3 containers, but I used we had these little shipping boxes that were pre-printed, pre-labeled on the front. I used a half a roll of shipping tape on that little box. You could throw that thing. There's no way you're gonna burst it open. I'm sure the lab people just hated me, but I could just see that thing laying there and just coming unglued and my film rolling out. And so I did it in 3 different containers and shipped it to 3 different mailboxes. And you couldn't put it in a mailbox because the heat ruins film. So you had to take it in and ship it from inside, thinking that they weren't going to sit out in the heat after it got in a truck somewhere, But I did the best I could.
Yeah.
In all those years of doing that, I lost 1 roll of film in my whole career that could not produce, So anyway, started doing our own processing and did everything in the house just for the control, and then too, I don't know how many weddings I did in 35 years. I've done as many as 90 some a year. My average probably was between 40 and 50 and 60, somewhere along in there. So you could probably do the math. I don't know. It's a bunch. Okay.
Yeah.
I never had a wedding that I didn't fulfill the obligation to the customer. Now I had one that was close because my reception when I was in the mall and we had 4 photography teams and I had a receptionist. I'm at home having a family reunion, and I get this call from this, very, very upset father of the bride wanting to know where the hell we were. I said, well, I'm having dinner with my family. Where are you at? He goes, well, you're supposed to be here photographing my wedding. And I'm like, oh, okay. So I said, let me call you right back. So I call my receptionist, and of course, she's like clueless. And so I finally get one of my team members on the phone, and I said, "Look, we've got a wedding today that was scheduled for you, and you didn't know it because nobody. It was what she'd done is she kept a wedding calendar, and she kept everything else calendar, which we eliminated immediately after that, by the way." And she put it on the wrong calendar. So my crew didn't see it. I didn't know anything about it. So we got them over there. They pulled it out. It wasn't, I gave a lot of stuff away that day. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But we did it. We delivered and it was a very influential family too, by the way. Could have really been a bad thing.
Mm-hmm.
But when it's all said and done, they came over and looked at the pictures, and they sit here and cry on the couch. It was all fine then, So, but you make a commitment to people, and you take their money, and you have to deliver, So, I don't know, the craft just kept improving, obviously, and then eventually, the whole world started going digital. I mean, I'm reminded a lot of what we're going through now with autonomous trucks and electric trucks and all this stuff, that blockchain, all this stuff of the future that everybody thinks is going to be a long way down the road. I lived through that, and I literally, I would, I'm sometimes people think that I'm somewhat of a smartass. I don't know where they get that, but
no, I couldn't believe it.
Back when we used to go to trade shows and stuff, there'll be all these hundreds of vendors. And what they love to do is shove stuff in your face, their brochure and stuff. And if you took everything, you'd have to stop halfway through and either go to the room and dump everything or throw it all away and start over again, because it would be literally be shopping bags full of this literature and stuff. So I just got to where I would just tell people no, well, then you had to come up with these creative ways of saying no. So there's this one particular company, they're still around, B&H Photo in New York City. They're still around, okay? Very, very, very pushy, aggressive people at the trade show, and they were always promoting film, film. And of course, this is in the, film was what we did. Film was the mainstay of our business. All right. Without film, we were, Kodak was still a blue chip company at that point in time. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I told this guy from B&H, I said, I don't need your literature. He goes, why not? I said, we don't use film. And I never even heard of digital. Okay. So I was just being a smart ass. And, in 5 years from that time, we weren't using film, Now it could have been earlier because I was dragging my feet to do it. I kind of I thought that I could, could hang on and finish my career and not have to embrace new technology, which is why, by the way, I own lane access shares. So I'm not making that mistake twice. Okay.
Yeah.
So I knew right then that, it wasn't going to work, and I was already a few years behind the 8-ball. But the first digital cameras that came out for professional photographers were basically a laptop with a 150 millimeter lens sticking out the front of them. It was the oddest looking thing. Go back and look at the old Kodak first digital cameras. Google them. Look, it's the strangest looking thing you've ever seen, and it's tethered. So, I did studio work, but my mainstay was wedding photography. And it's like, there's no in hell you're going to take that to a wedding, So I sit and waited a little bit, but my first digital camera cost over $15,000. It was a DLSR, a 35 millimeter format type camera. And it was called a Nikon D100. Okay. I still got it, as a matter of fact. And we thought we were something, we could shoot these images and of course we shot everything raw because we didn't know what kind of resolution we'd have to produce and what kind of manipulation we'd want to do post-production, And so, and I look at the very first iPhone I had, blew that camera out of the, it was like a different, completely different quality level, And I paid what the first, my first iPhone was a 4. What did I pay for that, Chris? Maybe
probably $800, $750, $800.
Yeah. I paid $15,000 for a camera that it couldn't hold water against this thing. Okay.
I'm watching a comment. You just blew Richie's mind.
and look, there's something about photography. You can't own one of anything. Okay. You have to have at least 2 of everything, because what happens if number 1 lays down? Okay. So it's not one camera at $15,000. It's more than one. And if you have a crew like I had 3 shooters went with me. That's 3 or 4 $15,000 cameras. Okay. So it wasn't a cheap thing to get into. All right. It's still not cheap. All right. But it's certainly a lot cheaper than it was then.
I have a friend that's a photographer now and a really good one, right? And I love watching he puts himself in these contortionist positions to get that shot. I've literally seen him lay in a creek, because all these senior portraits now, they got to be outdoors and they got to have all this stuff. And I've seen him lay in a creek just so he can get that right shot.
Oh, I've been there. Listen, some of the stuff you saw, we do a lot of artistic kind of stuff, and we would take them out in the air. I would scope out. What I'd love to do at the wedding was, once they cut the cake and everybody's having a party, I would try to get the bride and groom to go with me so we could go out on our own and exploit something at that venue that would make a great, artistic shot, So we'd be out on the golf course, or we'd be in a creek, or, And at this point in time, they're really not too worried about what the dress looks like because it's that deal's done. So they're a little more risky with what they'll do. And I had a couple of standard shots. I did one. If you can imagine a football huddle, if you can imagine a camera laying on the ground in a football huddle, okay, I would do that with the bridesmaids and their bouquets. So I had to literally lay on my back. One of those girls had to straddle me, okay, for this to work, and and I'm shooting up at them, and I have to make sure they pull their chins down because otherwise you'd be shooting right up their nose. So. But that was one of my most popular pictures. Another one we did, we call it the flying veil. We would take, it's called tulle, but veil, that netting is called tulle. And we would take a ream of that with us all the time because we never knew what kind of veils we were going to have. And I needed this picture had to have a really, really, really long veil, okay? So we would attach it under the bride's veil. And Mary Lou, my wife, she would string it all out. It would be about, I don't know, 10, 15 feet long. And we let it catch in the wind. And so you had this real dynamic line that sets the tone of the picture, and then we would do it kind of silhouette and everything like that. But we had these things that people came to us expecting that, or they would be disappointed. So I don't know how we got to this part. What was the question you originally asked me?
Well, here's what as I'm listening to you talk, and I've heard all these stories, right? I'm sitting here thinking about 25 years of trucking, and all we've done is make it easier. From when I started with a paper map and an exit guide, to here we are, have all this technology, and people still can't figure out where the hell they're going. But the trucks are easier to drive, and the routes are easier to find, and we have all of these tools and stuff at our beck and call. And we're taking advantage of being off the bleeding edge. All this stuff is really cheap. I mean, I can literally run the entire business of Blue Ribbon with this phone. And it's $1,000. And you were having to be on the bleeding edge to compete. Paying $15,000 for a camera. And it's just amazing. And to have to be the craft and give that level of service, to Bridezilla, and deal with the emotions and I mean, everything's heightened on wedding day. My God, and then translating it now to what we're doing is using the technology available, but also not going and paying for the $15,000 camera, which is the $150,000 truck. We bought a truck this week for $18,500, and it's probably the best truck in the fleet. And we don't have to make huge investments other than time. It's just fascinating to hear those stories.
Well, I think the point you were trying to get at that I kind of got off on a tangent and forgot about was that even with all the thing that was constant through all of that is that people didn't come to me necessarily for the technology. They didn't really know what I was going to use. They didn't really, especially the film. Nobody understands film. That's like some kind of magic show. You come up with something, you come out. I mean, where is it? It's done there, and now here it is. And I talk about this when we do our seminars. I use an example of an 8x10, photograph. Because the thing that made me successful. It wasn't necessarily just my embracing the technology, because I was, as you well know, I'm a little slow embracing technology, because it's not really what matters, it's not the thing that's not why people spent money with it. It's not why I built the business to where it was, because they didn't give a shit what kind of camera I use. Right. What brought them to me was, first of all, my passion for it, and the fact that the relationship that I was fortunate enough to be involved in. Not only did not only did my bedside manner have to be a certain thing to get them to trust me and to relax and that sort of thing, but man, I'm at the probably the most important day in a young lady's life. I mean, she's grown up from a little girl dreaming about this day. You know, Daddy has spent a ton of money they doesn't have to do it, to impress a bunch of people that they don't like, and and I get paid to show up, and I'm on the inside here. I'm a trusted confidant. I get to go in places where no one else can go. And so I could see the opportunity in that really, really early. Now, when I worked with Ray and the guy that started me, Ray was good, but it I'm better. Okay. Ray left money on the table because he didn't try to I don't want to say take advantage, but he didn't well, he sold photographs, okay? And he was, people liked him. Hell, he was my wedding photographer. We've got him upstairs right now. But they're photographs, okay? And I go to a wedding, I'm looking for that image. I'm looking for that bridesmaid whose little girl's with her that's dressed up, and they've never had a picture together like that ever. I'm looking for, that I'm finding that relationship, and they don't even know I'm doing it. I made as much money off of not the customers that hired me at a wedding than I did the customer that hired me, because I was always observant for that relationship. And you get back to that, people would, you can go to Walmart and get an 8x10 photograph for a couple bucks. I sold mine for $60. Okay. $60. And that's just for one that goes in an album. If you're going to put it on a wall, well, first of all, we're never going to put an 8x10 on the wall, but I sold 30x40s, for about $4,500, so, and that's an image. There's one hanging on my wall right there. You saw it when you were here the other day.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But people don't pay that because of the frame and the size of the picture. That's not why they buy it. They buy it because of what's on it and how important that is to them, and the memory that comes with looking at that, again. So, and I understood that, and the relationship here is the same thing we try to teach our guys every day. Anybody can go out there and haul freight. We coined a phrase that Kevin Rutherford stole from us. There's lots of capacity, but we don't find a lot of competition because nobody does it the way we do it. We get compliments every day it's hardly a day goes by that we only get a compliment about what great communicators you are. Great job, And it's not because we show up with fancy trucks, because that's not really what's important,
Right.
So we can't get across. It doesn't really matter what you show up in. It's how you show up, and that you show up, and that you show up and don't act like an ass, and even when things get sideways, being the adult in the room. I mean, that's what in the end, that's what really, really matters, and it doesn't matter what business you're in. It honestly doesn't. I mean, what I did in photography, what I did in the dry cleaning business, what I did in the car business, it's all about relationships. And I know it's such a everyday phrase that we hear here, build relationship. But that's the craft. That's the art. That's what separates, well, I mean, you saw my wedding price list, okay? I was the highest priced wedding photographer in Central, probably in the state. I had a couple of guys in Louisville that were about the same as me. But people had a choice. Nobody held a gun to their head here. They most of the time people came here because their best friend wedding I did, So if you allow yourself to be a commodity, then you're only going to be judged on price. Okay? And that's what trucking is. It's a commodity. The cheapest wins if you play that game. If you don't add value, value added is what changes it from commodity to something that people will pay extra for.
Yeah.
You're a good example. Your Windcore load,
Mm-hmm.
they pay extra for you because you bring value and you bring reliability and you bring, a reputation and you have a passion. You don't just look in the back of the truck and throw the windows out. Okay. You go through and make sure that the windows that didn't match that order gets back to the customer before, because everybody else doesn't do it that way. Is that what you want me to say?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you have said, and I kind of get it now, that this was the easiest business that you've ever been into, because, I mean,
Totally.
you just call somebody and they'll give you a load, and all you have to do is deliver it and they'll pay. You don't have to go through everything that you have to go through in every other business.
Well, first of all, there's no sales involved. You don't have to market. You don't have to advertise. You don't have to get out here and beat the street and look for. We make fun of the guys that do that. We call those agents. Okay, the ones that do all that, we call them assholes. Okay, but they're the ones doing all that stuff that you don't do, because all you have to do is look on the load board and choose which one. Okay, then all you have to do is show up, because that will eliminate the majority of your competition. If you don't believe me, check out some of the comments on Facebook about how BCOs act. Okay, so then all you got to do is just do what you're supposed to do. Not very hard, and then you bump the dock, you deliver things, and guess what? You get paid. There's no collection. There's no chase. I dealt with sometimes families for a year after a wedding, because I mean, after the wedding, the emotions are gone. They're going to go buy a car or buy a house or whatever, and now all of a sudden, what you did is not as important anymore as what they're going to get, or just have a baby or whatever. There's other things they can do that the money becomes more important for. So I learned about that really quick too. I got paid way in advance, but and we don't have to do that. We bump the low, we get paid to go do it. The thing I like the most about this business when I started in it is that it was so zen. I'm used to dealing with all these people and all 200 wedding guests, and the mother-in-law and everybody, and after a wedding, you got to deal with got all this stuff you're talking about. I spent 8 hours at a wedding, spent 25 hours back here doing image manipulation, and then prepare for the presentation, take the order, spend another 10, 12 hours to design an album, So, I mean, you look up and you got all we do is back up to a dock. It's done. There's no wake behind the truck of details that are behind a wedding photographer for the next year or more, and you do it over again, Go look at the real business world, what it takes to go in business, before you make you can make a profit in this business on the first job, first load. It takes real businesses 4 or 5 years to turn first profit, you can do it here on day one, so yeah. Now you got to, again, you can't be a commodity, because commodity guys make $60,000 a year as an owner operator, and guys who aren't commodity guys make $200,000 a year as an owner operator.
That's a huge jump.
And the difference is, one's a commodity, and they're just being compared for price only, and one is value added.
Yeah,
that's why it's so easy for me. I don't know. Maybe it's hard for others, but to me, it's the simplest thing I've ever done. And I've gone from knowing nothing about this business in 2008, 2007, when you were here. I went to CDL school in 2008, and hauled my first load. I don't know. I started my training on Labor Day weekend, so 30 days later, sometime about October of 2008, I'll haul my first load. Today, what is it, 13 years later? No, 2008. How far is it? 2008.
Yeah, it'd be 13.
13 years later. We have 13 trucks. Okay. What did we say we were going to do? I don't know, $3 or $4 million of business with Landstar this year.
Yeah.
And that's only, we only had half those trucks for the first half of the year. I know nothing about the trucking business, or knew nothing about the trucking business.
Yeah. I was telling a guy the other day, we were talking, and new acquaintance, and I said, well, we had 5 trucks at the beginning of the pandemic, and he stopped dead in his tracks. He was walking when I said that. He goes, what? You had what? I said, we had 5 trucks when the pandemic started. Now we got 13, and may have 15 by the end of the year. But it's not to say that there aren't difficulties with this business, because there are. We got a lot of moving parts. We got a lot of people in different places at different levels of not competence, different levels of
ability,
and having to meet everybody where they are, and that's a challenge, because you can't expect not everybody's going to be the same. They're all going to be different, and it's herding cats. And then a load cancels. All right, well, now we got to replace it. I don't have time to whine about it. I got to replace it. And then I got to go on, because I've got to, okay, well, I can't tear the whole thing down. I don't want to tear the whole thing down. I want to keep it intact. And, then I get to be like the guy that's looking for a load today, and I get to make 50 phone calls, to maybe book a load that paid half of what I had before. But what else am I going to do? Crying about it's not going to help.
But that's business. That's not unexpected. That's expected. That's business. Other businesses have the same issues. We talk about failure. There's a reason why most businesses, over half the businesses, are gone in 10 years.
Yeah.
Their ability to handle the unexpected, which I say is expected if you prepare for it.
Have we talked about, I don't think we've had a podcast since we discovered this shop, have we? I can't remember.
I don't remember. I know we haven't told anybody who it is and where it is, and right. I'm not sure I'm going to yet.
Yeah, Larry's not sure he wants to share it with y'all yet.
Y'all have destroyed Carl. Okay, Carl, the boy can't sleep. Okay, we can't get anything worked on from him anymore.
Yeah.
I've got a truck that's literally been sitting there 6 weeks in his driveway that I don't think he's touched. Thanks to you all. You're welcome.
So, and here's the thing. There's so many things that happen by accident. You just can't plan it. Okay. We had a truck that we wanted to get the diesel force cleaning done on. We had Bruce at the event, and he talked up, the diesel force cleaning and everything. And I called Pittsburgh Power, and they're like, yeah, well, except one thing, we don't do pack cars. And I'm like, well, what the hell? So I called Diesel Force corporate office, and I'm like, dude, I need who does pack cars? Because their training video or their marketing video is literally done on a pack car.
Yes.
So he mentioned the name of this shop, and I gave him a call. And I'm thinking, because Pittsburgh Power, it's 2 months to get in. And I called the guy, and I said, will you do a pack car? And he's like, yeah, we'll do a pack car. And I said, well, how much advance you need? He said, can you be here today? And I'm like, no. I said, I can be there Monday. So he's like, well, yeah, come on up. And so I dropped the truck off, and Larry and I went on a little excursion to northern Michigan to look at a truck. And so here's the thing about this truck. It's
which truck?
The
one we bought, or the one we did the diesel force clean on?
The one we did the diesel force clean. So it's an 18 T680 with a pack car.
$1 million
MX
miles.
13 million miles.
Was a team truck? Was a team truck?
Yeah. It was a FedEx contractor truck. Ran from L.A. to Orlando and back every week for 3 years. So truck had 9 $25 or something on it when the guy bought it. All right, so it starts having check engine lights, start having issues. It's derating. So driver stops at a TA. TA says it's EGR codes. So I got him into the Kenworth dealer one night at like midnight, and they pulled the codes, and they said, well, it's a fuel pressure issue. And I said, what about EGR? They said, we don't see EGR. We just see fuel pressure. Okay, Carl looks at it. Carl says, yeah, it's an EGR code of some kind. Okay. So we take it up to this place, right? And they said, well, we have an EGR code and fuel pressure. And I'm like, so you got both of them. All right. And so what was so amazing was not only did they find it, but they explained why. They said, well, here's what this code is, and here's what creates it. And here's what this code is, and here's what creates it. Now, it required a couple of $1,600 fuel pumps to fix it, which it did. But I can buy 16 Detroit Diesel 60 series fuel pumps for the price of one PACCAR fuel pump. So, but it was just an unbelievable level of service, and they do everything: paint, body, frame, engine, transmission. There's never, oh no, we don't do that. Not one time. And so we're just walking around this place going, holy crap. Like, how is this real? If I was going to build a shop, that would be it. And this shop started with one guy in a service truck, and now he's got 2 locations.
And here's the most impressive. And I asked him this. I said, Justin, I know how hard it is to find drivers. How do you find these technicians? He goes, well, we hand raise them. I'm like, you do what? He goes, well, I say, explain. He goes, well, we get them straight out of vocational school. We provide all the tools they need. Okay. Everything they need. They don't have to have anything. And what normally takes 5 years to learn, they learn here in 90 days. I'm like, you do what? And he went on to talk about their Monday lunches and all. I mean, all this. They've got basically a blue ribbon program right there for techs. They make it's amazing. And listen, you've heard me talk about that important question that you ask when you want to know if somebody what sort they're talking about. That 3-letter question, why? Well, we asked that question to the guy who found all these codes and did the diagnosis on this truck. And you sit there and your mouth fell open with all the knowledge and information that he had, not out of a book. He's sitting there telling you this, and you know what? It made sense. You didn't look at him like, well, what? He explained it, and it made sense. And guess what? He was right.
Yep. And so, and the owner gave me a ride to the airport to pick up a rental car, and I told him to go down the road.
Hang on, you need to know this shop. Well, listen, $1,000 to my account in the morning, and I'll divulge it to you. Okay.
I'm riding down the road with him, and I said, "Listen, I mean, we want to tell everybody about this, but I mean, I might keep it a secret. I mean,
yes, we might.
It's
one Bitcoin, and we'll reveal. Okay, one Bitcoin.
Obviously we're still building the relationship, and it's not like we're testing them, because I feel like they've been tested and they passed. But you can just see the process of how they go about finding a diagnosis. Oh, and by the way, the parts guy is incredible, because there ain't no, oh, it's on 52-week back, or he's going to go find it.
All these parts that these Kenworth guys can't find right now, these knock sensors, he can get them.
They got them. Yeah. They don't mess around.
Let me tell you something. The most impressive thing. Well, not the thing that got me first when you walked in there, Chris. You walked in there and you think you're at the parts counter, because you are. And there's 2 computer terminals right there. And on the back of them, it says, "Hi, my name is Justin. How can I help you?" The other one says, "Hi, my name is Mark. How can I help you?" Well, Mark's the parts manager and Justin's the service manager. Now, when's the last time you saw that?
Usually, right?
That's
The
the
one don't know what
attitude.
the other one's doing. Yeah.
That's the attitude that we're talking about. Listen, I've been in dealerships all of my life. Okay. I grew up in one. My dad was in the dealership business. I'm not easily impressed. Now, this is not a franchise dealership like Kenworth Freightliner. It's an independent. But anyway, my point I'm making is I'm not easily impressed. We left there shaking our head, and now listen, we love Carl. Don't get me wrong, but you all have covered him up. So we're having to find an alternate. So our plan B right now is this shop. It's not in West Virginia. I'll tell you that part. Okay. So it's way up in Fairbanks. Okay. Alaska. So
well, now
hard to get to. But...
Now let's contrast this. Okay. By going to the Freightliner, just a day later, the next day.
We were at the Freightliner on Friday. We were at this place on Monday, right?
No, we went to the Freightliner after that because it was after.
That's right.
So we
were there on Monday. We're at the Freightliner on Friday.
So we got an 04 Columbia 12.7 EGR. Was at this Freightliner twice, March and April.
3 times. Excuse
me. Right. This is the 3rd time. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it was there in March, and then we went back and still had EGR issues, and that was about a $6,000 bill. And now we're back, right? And Larry had built this great relationship with the service manager, and we thought incorrectly.
Well, the only reason we went there is because the service manager agreed to meet me and you, and we sat there and we had a 2-hour meeting and we discussed all of our expectations, and they sort of did the same thing that day that this shop did to us, kind of. Okay.
Yeah.
It sounded good. It looked good. I had expectations that we might have finally, because again, it all comes down to relationships. Okay. So we sat there and we formed what I thought was the beginning of a great relationship. And it was. The truck was there the first time we picked it up. They kind of did everything they said they were going to do until it had a problem. And then we take it back, and guess what? The guy we built the relationship, he's gone. And so they've been looking for a replacement service manager since then. We were there Friday. We found out that weeks later, I don't know how many, it's been a while, okay? They finally just took the parts manager, who's been a parts manager for 32 years, and made him the service manager. Now, a lot of y'all don't get that, but I'm going to tell you right now, that is he is a complete disaster. Okay?
That was not a promotion. That was a punishment.
And because he's never dealt with technicians before. They're going to run they're going to overrun him, run the shop. There'll be no leadership there. And that's the problem now, is there's no communication between the guys doing the work. And that was our problem. We sat there and talked for 2 hours about, look, do not put something back on our trucks that's rubber and was going to break on the side of the road in 2 weeks. We get over there, and guess what they did? The reason it's there right now, it had some type of an exhaust problem. Carl looked at it, and all the manifold bolts you could tighten with your fingers. So we go in there, and of course their excuse is, well, that manifold must have warped. I'm like, yeah, it warped and loosened all the nuts up, right?
Yeah, in 10,000 miles. So here's the contrast, right? We have one shop that never says, it's not that they don't say no, but, and then the other one is, oh man, we can't do that. We can't do that. Well, we can't do that. No, we can't do that. And they don't want to do that, and now we've got this $5,000 air conditioner that we're dealing with. It's just one cluster from one disaster to the next, and every person that touches it screws it up worse than it was before. So frustrating. So frustrating.
But here's a shop. Here's a shop. Now, hopefully, we're not wrong. So far, we've not been disappointed. But here's a shop that gets it. You know,
Mm-hmm.
they got the same hand tools we see everywhere else. They don't have anything that no one else does except the desire to want to do it right. You know, Chris went to lunch with the owner and didn't even know he's the owner. Find out after he's out with him, oh, I'm the guy that started this place. You know?
Yeah. He took me to the airport, and we're pulling out of the parking lot, and I said, "So how long you been here?" He goes, "I started it." Oh, so you're that guy? Okay. And we had a great conversation going down the road about. He's the one that told me that in most cases it takes 5 years. So 5 years? Yeah. 5 years to learn 80% of what they need to know. And they do it in 90 days. Because what do you call it? Cross check. Okay. If you diagnose a truck and you're a senior tech, you have to go to a junior tech. If you're a junior tech, you have to go to senior tech. And he said what he finds with the senior tech going to the junior tech is when the senior tech goes to the junior tech. I saw that comment. When the senior tech goes to the junior tech, as he's about to explain what he's found, he will check himself, right, in that training process. And of course, the junior going to the senior. And so everything is cross-checked and cross-checked at every time. And I watched it. There was a younger guy who was doing something on a Kenworth or Cummins, and the guy that was working on our truck goes over there and, well, this is how you run the belt. And it's fascinating to watch. The other cool thing that you didn't get to see was I had watched Justin take a phone call from a guy, and I heard him say, well, man, when do you need the truck? And the guy's like, yeah, I guess the guy's like, I need it now. And he's like, well, man, I'd really love to have it done for you today, but I'm just not sure. Well, so I'm getting ready to roll out. It's 6:00 and the whole place is a ghost town, except these two guys that are thrashing on this Kenworth get the transmission back in it. When the doors got locked at 5:00, not everybody went home because two of them stayed there to put that truck back together because the customer needed it today, and you just don't find that just about anywhere else. So let me tell you what we're all laughing about. Rocky says, I know a guy can build a motor while you sleep tonight, but need a good AC guy. This one I got's killing me. God almighty. I did the video before about the $1,300 air conditioner. This is what we're talking about.
Yeah.
From that to we put a line on and then the line breaks and we put it on again. And then some jackwagon last night broke the condenser and then vacated the premises and left. And so we've had TA corporate involved now. So I'm moderately hopeful that we have finally got some people. And Michael Reuter says there are no good mechanics in Fairbanks, so you can't sell that one.
I know. Yeah. I got to pick someplace else. British Columbia. How's that? So
yeah.
But no, going back to it though, the difference in this shop, obviously all got the same stuff. The equipment looks the same, but it's the attitude. They want to serve the customer, which is something that we can't find anywhere in the shop business. Nobody wants to serve. The expectation is that the customers are here for us. It all revolves around, well, it doesn't matter if we're going to, inconvenience the customer. Let's just do what's best for us. And that's the problem we have. Yeah, I told this guy, I said, look, if we let this out, we're gonna kill you, okay? You'll have to. They've got a lot of land. You're gonna have to build a whole lot more buildings and find a whole lot more of these kids you find, because if people find out that there's a shop that really gives a shit,
yep,
look out.
Yeah.
So I'm not ready to. I don't want to do it to the guy yet. We're gonna have to give him a little chance to get ready, but. I'm telling you, if unless we're drastically misled here, which I can't see that. No.
I
But
saw a negative review. It was so
oh yeah,
precious
I saw that too. Yeah.
on their Google reviews, and this guy was like, these people are crooks and they overcharge and I wouldn't recommend them to my worst enemy and all this stuff. And I mean, this guy's just ripping them. And there's a response from the shop, and it was like, hey, buddy, number one, you're the driver. Okay, you didn't pay the bill. You don't even know how much the bill was. Your company was great to work with. So I got the full story on that. They had a fuel issue. It was on a pack car, and they would fix one problem, which would lead to another problem, and they kept chasing them down. And of course, it's the damn pack car, and waiting on parts and waiting on parts and waiting on parts. And so the driver is calling them every day and harassing them. And they're like, buddy, are you paying the bill? Well, no, I'm the driver. Then shut up, And he's like, if you're not paying the bill, I don't want to talk to you anymore, And so the guy calls again, and he's like, you got to order these parts. He's like, you want me to send you the bill? Well, no. Again, I will send you the bill if you want to pay for the parts. So come on down, Hoss. So it was pretty comical to hear them tell that story. But
well, let me put some perspective on that. Okay, when you called them and set up the appointment to take that truck up there, they thought you were just a driver.
Mm-hmm.
What'd they say? Bring it up here, leave the keys. We've got a car you can take and drive while we got your truck here.
Yeah, I had told him, I'm like, well, I'll get an Uber to a hotel or something. He's like, we got a car. We'll just leave keys in it for you.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. And I don't know. You just don't find that level of service. And you would think that's what I think Zeke was telling me that, no, it was Byron said a friend of his is like a diesel mechanic and a guy was wanting to get into driving or something. He was like, dude, if you could work on trucks, and I don't know how in the world did they not see the opportunity that there is when there's so many idiots. I mean, you talk about capacity and competition. There is none. There's literally no competition. But I was talking to. I was talking to a guy yesterday, and he said, look, I'm not a mechanic, and I'm not sure I want to be one. I said, I get that. Okay. But what you have to do, if you're going to be in business, if you're going to be an owner operator, you have at least got to invest the time to understand the system so that you will know when somebody's feeding you a line of bullshit. You don't have to turn the wrenches. No, you don't have to get out there and get dirty, but you have to understand the fuel system. You have to understand the brakes. You have to understand the suspension so that when somebody's trying to feed you a line of hogwash, you can say, no, I don't think that's what we're going to do. Because when you're the guy paying the bill, you're in charge. The shop foreman's not in charge. The mechanic's not in charge. You're in charge.
Sometimes but you have to remind them of that. But
yeah. And I've reminded plenty of them. Who's paying the bill? Oh, I'm paying the bill. So you're going to do what I tell you, right? Well, I guess so. You're damn right you are.
See how I've created a monster here, everybody. He didn't act like that before he met me.
Right. But so even back to Larry's photography example or his dry cleaning business, if you don't understand how to create that value, and here's this drives me crazy. We get these comments on behalf of our drivers, thank you so much for communicating. And I went through with the new hire and I showed the thread of emails, and the driver literally acknowledged the load, received, thanks. Okay. Then he gets to the shipper. Hey, I arrived at the shipper. I'm loaded. Hey, my ETA is 1,300. I've arrived at the shipper. I'm empty. Thanks for the load. That's it. all he did, he probably typed out 12 words in 5 emails to this agent, and this agent said he needed to teach a class at Landstar.
Yeah, yeah.
But that shows you how bad it is.
Yeah.
Because he used 12 words to communicate. Most of them, it's 0. They won't tell you when they've got the load. And bless her, I don't know if it's Eastern Europeans or just really impatient, but I have some agents I'll book a load with. And it's like they hit enter on their computer to send me the email and then instantly call, have you got it yet? And I'm like,
Right.
dude, my phone just give me a second, you know?
Yeah.
I'll be glad to acknowledge the load, but you got to like wait for the internet to let it get here.
But they're so used to working with people who won't.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I get it, you know.
Well, we just hired a former BCO. And his first interview was a little rough because we were kind of hard on him. And I said, listen, man, I'm not trying to punch you in the mouth right now. Okay. It may feel that way, but you got to understand most BCOs are ignorant, arrogant pricks, you know, and I am absolutely 100% not going to put up with that. So if you come here with the attitude of a regular BCO, you're going to have a hard life because I am absolutely not going to put up with it. And so I just had to make sure he knew that if you were here long enough to get infected with the BCO disease, that ain't going to fly.
Well, he's the first one we've ever hired, I guess, because I generally don't even.
Well, Cindy was.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true.
But, you know, because we get the call. Well, Larry, I don't get the calls, thank God. Larry gets the calls from Landstar.
Got one today.
You know, of guys that are, because Larry's like the BCO graveyard of when somebody calls Landstar and they got their ass in a sling and Landstar's like, here, call Larry, you know. And he gets the calls from the guys. And right now, the common thing is, yeah, my one box is out, or it's a knock sensor, and I can't get one for 4 months. You know, what am I going to do? You know?
Well, I don't think I've told you this. I had one today. Okay. Team.
Oh.
Call me. They do 7,000 miles a week. Okay. And one box. So she said, we're talking through her options, okay? And she said, now it's at a dealership. They can get a new one in a few months. Don't you think that I could go up there and just talk to them and they could take one off of a new truck and put it on mine? And then when theirs comes in, just put it back on theirs? I said, no, I don't think they're going to do that. She goes, well, maybe I could just go buy an old beater truck and just drive it till it comes in and then sell it. I said, well, I like that idea. I said, but here's the way I would do it, though. I'd go buy the beater truck you're talking about and get rid of the one you got. Okay? And she goes, what do you mean? I goes, well, look, I've got beater trucks. I don't have anything down for a one box. Okay? I've never had to call another BCO and ask for a job, but yet every day I get BCOs who have these trucks that all they do is brag about them on Facebook, and they want to come drive for me in one of my trucks because they can't get theirs fixed. So maybe beater truck's the way to go here. Well, that conversation didn't last long. She thought I was a jerk.
Look, I mean, I've been there. You know, broke, desperate, and stupid. You know, I've lived it, man. You know, and I sure as hell don't want to ever live it again. But that's what people.
Well, we bought a truck. Let's talk about the truck.
Okay.
Truck comes up on Facebook, and in 15 minutes, I'm talking to the guy on the phone because it checked all the boxes. And the more I talked to the guy, and the more the provenance we verified, it was one of those ones where I knew if I didn't jump on it, it'd be gone before I hung up the phone.
Yep.
So I basically bought the truck asking price, sight unseen, except for, I don't know, a dozen pictures. So I
We violated so many rules that we bought from a
We-
BCO,
yeah,
bought it
yeah.
sight unseen, you know.
So
But
it's a 99 Century. Okay, it's got a
Ford,
1.234 million on it. Documented though, verifiable overhaul 300,000 miles ago, paperwork. And I won't go into all the details, but we get up there and we look at the truck and it's as advertised. Okay,
yeah,
it's everything he said it was, and even a little bit more that we didn't even notice. So we didn't even drive the truck. Paid the guy, which is a little bit of a story. My son was supposed to be there with a cashier's check, and he makes it out. He spells the guy's last name wrong. We're up there on Sunday with a cashier's check that's worthless now, trying to figure out how to get this guy paid on a Sunday. So that was a fiasco. But anyway, we finally got it figured out. So we drove it for the very first time after we paid for it. So don't do any of this, okay? This is not the way to do this, all right? So we get driving down the road, we find the first issue, and that is that somebody had to have changed the rear end gears because we had seen the build sheet and the gears were 279s. He calls me about an hour down the road going, dude, this is 1,600 RPMs at 65 miles per hour. I go, that don't sound right. So we stop for the night and have dinner, and I get my laptop out and we start doing the computations and figured out it has to be, he had to switch from 279s to 290 somethings, 294s or whatever. So, so I'm thinking, okay, well, how can we fix this without spending $6,000 to change the gears? And so I got to look at it. It's got regular dual tires on it. All right. We obviously are going to put singles on it, and singles are 40.1 inches for the regular 22.5 445 50s. I said, you know what? We could put 455 50s on it. And I looked up, and those are 41.9 inches. So we picked up 2 inches of diameter. I put that in there, brings our RPMs right back down where they're supposed to be. So we're going to run 455 tires on it to the 445 tires. Both of them are 22.5. One's a little harder to find, but my tire guy is no problems. We're going to have them tomorrow, and so fix the problem. So we take this truck down to first of all, we're wanting to leave the truck up there with an inspection station so that we can come on home. Okay,
what a nightmare.
This is in Upper Friggin, Michigan. Okay, 30 miles south of the Mackinac Bridge, way the hell up there. Okay, yeah. And so we're calling all the Landstar. By the way, there's not any. There was one in Saginaw, and one in Ann Arbor, and one in Grand Rapids, and a couple. We call all these places, and they're like, "Oh no, you can't leave it. You've got to be here to pull it in and out of the shop." Really. So we finally found this, and I will tell you about this guy, okay? Because I think he needs to be recognized. Yeah. We found this independent called Drury Brothers somewhere in, what's it called?
Well,
anyway,
let me consult the book of knowledge real quick.
If you look on Landstar's inspection list, you'll see him. Okay, Drury Brothers. We drive the truck out there, and it's a farm. It's a working farm.
Durand, Michigan.
The guy's name is Kurt. So they've got a barn out there, and it's a truck shop, legitimate truck shop. And you got to go through the cows, and we had to wait for the hay baler to get out of the way and everything before we could pull it in the. We finally get it in the shop and talk to Kurt. Kurt's like, yeah, no problem, man. Leave it here. I'll get to it in a couple of days. And I said, we'll be back after next week. Just find what it needs, fix it. Let me know what it is. Send me the inspection as soon as you can, so I can get this thing on with Landstar. So that's the first thing you have to do. So he calls me the next day, and he goes, well, here's what's going to have to pass. He said, I had to scrape some grease. Somebody really, really did a good job of greasing. I've scraped the grease off some things, but that's okay. And then he said one other thing.
Little air leak in a dash.
Well, there was something else before that. There was something else minor that he did. And he said it wouldn't fail it. He said, I'm just going to fix it for him. But he said, the only thing that'll fail it is there's an air leak somewhere in the dash. Now, dude, this is a 1999 Century with 1.4 million miles on it. And this is a real Landstar inspector who really gives a rat's ass. And only thing he can find to fail it is an air leak in the dash. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
I'm feeling pretty good right now. Okay?
Yeah.
So I'm like, dude, knock it out. We can't get there for another week. I remembered that one of the MD alignment guys up in Michigan, Jim Fowler, I called him. I said, "Hey, Jim, I'm finally going to get to do some business with you. I got a truck in Michigan. How about you going over there and doing alignment on Friday and putting torque bushings and everything in it?" No problem. He goes over there on Friday, replaces all the spring bushings and the torque rods. And he said, "Dude," he said, "the kingpins are tight. All the wheel bearings are tight." He said, "The tie rod end's tight." He said, "The only thing wrong with this thing is nobody's ever changed the bushings." It was a half inch off on the front and 3/4 inch off on the rear axle, Roxy. And that was it. It's done. And you drove it, to Indianapolis today. How to drive?
Oh, like a dream. You would, I mean, you listen. I drove the 20s. I've driven the 2016s. I've driven the 2018. Give me that 99 Century. That thing rides like a dream. Handles. It's
Now,
ridiculous.
I'm going to tell you, we paid $18,500 for it. Okay, it can haul freight with it already if we wanted to. We're doing our modifications to it to get it squared away, but no one box. We ain't going to be down for a knock sensor. You know, you could buy this truck and be hauling freight for 18. You could pay this truck off as a BCO in about 4 weeks and be debt free, no truck payment, hauling freight, making $3,000 a week. You know.
Yep.
But I'm the lunatic. What the fuck I know, right?
Right. so and really the only things legitimately wrong, the air conditioner doesn't work, which is probably, a seal, an O-ring or something.
Well, it's set for a year. So
yeah, set for a year. And we think maybe has an injector hanging because it's a little cranky in the morning, but once it gets warmed up, it's fine. But dude, that's nothing, but you could literally haul freight with it right now. It's an incredible, it's a holy grail, once in a lifetime truck that you find, and this truck is going to make a lot of people.
And I found it. I got it.
Yeah.
We bought it.
Yeah, it's amazing. So I'm really looking forward to.
All right, little announcement here before we wrap up. Okay.
Yeah.
We have got a opportunity that we didn't think we'd ever have, okay? Because I know nothing about it. Chris thinks he does, but I just think he's all air. But we literally we're gonna open up a limited platform division, okay? One of our strategic partners has heavy haul experience and is an SD 18 or whatever it is, and so we've got our first guy in it right now. Rocky's truck is being converted with a headache rack and all the necessary things to pull platform. So we just found out today that we have an opportunity to get a second truck already set up for heavy haul. So we're going to be looking for candidates that want to come here and do the Blue Ribbon program, but do it on the platform side instead of the dry box side. So if that's something, we've never had that before, and it's going to be, we're not going to have a bunch. We're going to have 1 or 2 at the most, unless you guys just kill us with it, and then we have to go start buying platform trucks. But anyway, we're going to do it. We got the experienced guy that's going to be the mentor and the dispatcher, and so we're good to go. So if anybody's interested and maybe haven't reached out to us because we don't do platform, well, here's your chance. So we're going to be looking for one in the next few weeks, and so let us know if that's what interests you. So what else we got? I'm going. Any of you guys that are going to be going to Vegas with the BCO days, I'll be there. Let me know. Look me up. We'll try to get together. I am going to
drinks on Larry.
I am going to try to put together a fleet owners meeting out there. So anybody listening that's a fleet owner would like to get with you out there, and we're going to try to organize, loosely a little organization. Since there's not much in support at Landstar for fleet owners, we can help each other. So,
yeah.
What else you got, man?
I think that's it. I think we've done enough damage for one day.
Attitude is everything, guys. Attitude. There's a lot of things you can't control every day. Attitude's not one of them. You're the only person that can decide whether your attitude's good or bad. And that's the biggest thing in starting relationships and keeping relationships is your attitude, and understanding that for the relationship to work, you've got to give more than you take. So with that,
Yep. All right. We'll see y'all next time.
My work here is done. Good night.